Welcome to Beaver Tracks, a damn good podcast where we bring you inside the world of OSU and share a behind the scenes look at Beaver Nation. I'm Kaylene McLaughlin, an admissions advisor at OSU based at our Corvallis campus. Thank you all for joining us today. Our guest today is Lujan from OSU's Beaver racing team. How's it going, Ian?
It's going great. How are you?
Doing good. Do you want to just kind of go into a brief introduction about yourself to tell the podcast?
Yeah, my name's Ian Lujan. I'm from Anacortes, Washington. I am a sophomore with senior standing, and I am the junior suspension lead for Beaver Racing. So I work under Stone LaCroix, who's the senior suspension lead, and I manage the outboard suspension system.
Thanks. Do you want to kind of start with how you got involved with Beaver racing? Was it something that kind of came with being a part of engineering, or was it just something you kind of stumbled upon?
Yeah, so Beaver Racing was something that I specifically sought out. I grew up around cars. My dad used to drag race a 67 Nova, and then he used to own a Subaru WRX and all these super cool cars. So I grew up around a car-loving family. And so when I got to college age, I had family friends who were in engineering who mentioned something called SAE. Turns out that's the Society of Automotive Engineers, and they run student racing leagues. And so I heard about all this through family friends and decided that was something I had to do. That was the thing for me. So when I was looking for schools, I specifically sought ones out with SAE teams. Um, and so I knew that OSU had an SAE team, and I was actually looking for the Formula team. My very first day I was at school, I hadn't even fully moved in yet. I bolted for Rogers because I knew the machine shop was down there, and I was looking for FSAE. And I walked in and saw the Baja car, and I said to myself, I said, "Oh, that is so much cooler." And so I was standing awkwardly by the garage because I was unsure of what to do. And Nicholas Ford, our powertrain lead, spotted me, and he asked me, he was like, "Hey, can I help you with anything?" And so I told him, I was like, "Oh, I'm a freshman. I'm really excited to join the team." And he says, "You're a little early. Come to our cookies and clubs event. We'll get connected with you, but you're here. Why don't we show you around the shop?" So I got a shop tour from the powertrain lead, and it was just a great time. And so that's how I got involved. Day zero of me being at OSU, I showed up in the shop. And I just fell in love with the car as soon as I saw it. And I was like, that's something I have to do. And I had also seen it previously when I came to orientation. So I knew where to go, but I was originally planning on doing Formula. But when I saw the Baja car with the team around it in its natural environment, it just was so much cooler and I had to do it. So yeah.
That's so cool. Kind of sounds like a meant to be moment, like just kind of all comes together, and that's
Oh,
super
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, definitely meant to be.
That's that's super cool. And like day like yeah, basically zero of being even on campus, just being able to get involved right off the bat, that's super cool.
Yeah, and I was very quickly one time I was in the shop. I think it was barely into week one, and I was already in there doing stuff with the team. Um, I think I was sorting bolts because you got to get the freshmen to do something.
Yeah.
And especially while you're still figuring out where their skill levels are at, you do something simple. So I was sorting
Mhm.
bolts out of a bucket, which I was just happy to be there, so I was ecstatic. But I came in day zero, and then by week one, I'm already doing something. And Nicholas Ford walks up to me. He's like, "Do you ever do anything around here?" So I'm already giving you a hard time, and oh, it was just so much fun. It was just great to be involved from so early, and it's a very accepting team, so it
Yeah.
was nice to have that experience of being welcomed even a week into it. So
Yeah, for sure. And like kind of nice how accessible it was too. Like you didn't have to be a part of a program, and like you didn't even have to wait for like any sort of like big like our big Beaver community fair or anything like that. You're just kind of able to hop in it. Was there any like paperwork process to it, or was it just kind of like showing up to meetings and just kind of joining the team?
so there is paperwork depending on how involved you want to be.
Okay.
Um, a informal team motto is you get out what you put in.
Okay.
And so I decided to put in my all because I loved it from the second I saw it, and I wanted to be as involved as I could be. So for me, there was paperwork very quickly. There's a liability waiver
Okay.
because of course we're working with dangerous equipment. Driving a car is dangerous.
Yeah.
So there's liability waivers, and then we have our test track outside of town. There's a liability waiver to be there because it's off-site, and
Yeah.
so we have an agreement with the landowner, and so we have to have a liability waiver for that. There's no like barrier to entry paperwork. You can just come in and start helping.
Nice.
But the Baja SAE does have a liability waiver that you do have to sign. The other thing that is can be a barrier to entry that's not necessarily paperwork is the qualification system for
Okay.
the machine shop. It is not required to have any skills in machining, welding, or any sort of manufacturing, but a lot of what the team does is manufacturing. So getting those qualifications to work on the machines is important, and most people don't realize how important it is until they're halfway through fall term and they haven't signed up for any qualifications yet. And then they get there and they're like, oh, I want to help. And it's like, okay, well, when we go into manufacturing season, you have to have your qualifications. And they
Yeah.
didn't start it when they got at school. They started it winter quarter. And then by the time we hit manufacturing, they're still getting their qualifications. Um,
Gotcha.
and it's not a big deal. The shop is super helpful. I know that we're merging our mill and lathe. This is all boring engineering stuff. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. It's helpful to people to know.
Yeah, so I've heard we're merging our mill and lathe qualifications to streamline the process.
Oh,
So
nice.
you take one qualification and suddenly you can do most of what they'll have freshmen doing. Um, and it's super helpful to have those qualifications. And I would say,
Yeah.
um, if you really want to be involved in an engineering club, even if you don't know what club it is, start those qualifications when you get to school. Like go to the machine shop, ask when they're open, sign up for the mailing list or whatever, because as soon as you start doing those qualifications, you can do so much more within the clubs. And you
Yeah.
can do as much as you want without them, but you might be limited when manufacturing season comes. Um,
Gotcha.
and also there was something you mentioned earlier in your question about how, you don't have to be part of a specific program to join
Mhm.
the clubs. And you're so right. And that's actually something I really want to highlight with Beaver Racing is we have our engineering side, we have our design team, we have our manufacturing team, we have our pit crew.
Mhm.
But we also have stuff that's not even related to engineering. We have our business presentation team,
Oh, that's
which is a
cool.
great opportunity for business majors to practice their sales pitch, to practice, standing in front of a potential client and selling our product. And you work with real sales figures, real cost estimates. Every year the prompt is different. So this year we were selling a light duty military vehicle to
Oh,
SAE Systems, which is the fake client. Um, and so there was a lot of data that SAE Systems provided, and it's a great opportunity for business majors to get a taste of what the real world is like. Um, and then we also have the design presentation team, which is another form of presentation, but it's more engineering focused.
okay.
So I was on the design presentation team this year. I presented the suspension subsystem. And essentially, you just walk the judges through your engineering process.
Okay.
And so it's a great opportunity to showcase all the work you've done. It's also a great opportunity to hone your presentation skills and hone the soft skills that engineers often lack. Um, and so it was a super cool opportunity. And, I highly recommend business majors come and check us out for the business presentation or just to help out. We have a ton of stuff. We have merchandising. We have a social media team. So if you want to be involved in social media, we have a great social media manager right now. Shout out to Jessica. She absolutely kills it. And Austin too. We have a whole media team, point being.
Nice.
Um, so yeah.
That's super awesome. I think that's going to be really helpful for students to hear that, like, because I think there is kind of not necessarily a stigma, but I think people associate clubs with particular programs rather than thinking like, oh, well, like I like maybe I'm not currently an engineering major, but I grew up working on cars or like doing kind of all these little things and being able to kind of be a part of that without having to be in a major. And then also, I really appreciate you mentioning the business opportunities because I didn't even realize that those were like elements that you can like be a part of the team and kind of see like different sides of the coin, basically. So that's really cool. I think a lot of students are gonna hopefully gravitate to kind of all the different aspects that this program has to offer. Um, and kind of transitioning a little bit to my next question, but how has this overall impacted your time at OSU? I know you said you're a sophomore, so it hasn't been like a super long time yet, but kind of how has this experience helped you grow up until this point, and how do you think you're going to continue to kind of help either stay with Beaver Racing into the future, or how will you take these skills with you as you continue at OSU?
Yeah. For one, I will be staying with Beaver Racing until I graduate. That's how much I love
I
this
figure.
club. Um, but so I saw this question and I was super excited to answer this one because this is something that I tell all of my friends. I have a friend who's coming in as a freshman. And I have, my significant other is also in engineering and my friends are all in engineering. So this is something I tell them all the time is you can come to OSU and take all the classes you want, and they will
Mhm.
teach you about engineering. But if you want to learn to be an engineer and how to do engineering, you do the clubs. And that is how it's impacted me is instead of just knowing about engineering and having these theoretical skills, I actually have real skills. I have
Yeah.
real experience engineering a product, and I have real performance data to back up how that product performed. And so, I am a sophomore on the team, so I haven't done a ton of crazy projects, but it's stuff to put on the resume. It's stuff to show employers like, hey, this is the simulation I did on the engine sled, and this is how the
Yeah.
FEA turned out. Sorry, FEA is finite element analysis. It's a software tool we use to analyze materials.
Nice.
But it's something to show employers to say, hey, I am not just an educated person, I'm an experienced person. I am not just someone who took engineering classes, I am an engineer. And I think that's how it's impacted me, is it's given me the confidence to say, no, I am an engineer. I'm not just
Yeah.
learning engineering. Um,
Yeah. I get to do these things on a regular
yeah,
basis that you want me to do. Yeah.
exactly. And, you know, I when it comes down to it, I think that's the advantage of a club like Beaver Racing, and especially Beaver Racing, um, is the ability to actually say, I don't just know how engineering works theoretically. I've done it. I've done the process. I've used these skills. I've used this knowledge. Um, and it's also impacted me in the way I form connections with my peers and also my professors. I had a professor for statics. Oh, his name is slipping my mind right now, but he was amazing, and I loved him to death. He was great. But he and I had conversations one on one about I had to miss class for some beaver racing related business. Um, and so I had talked to him. He knew that there were a couple students in the statics class on beaver racing. And so during one of his lectures, he took some of our promotional photos and put it on the slides as like, oh, this is an example of a truss system. And then he talked a little bit about how our frame uses a truss. So it's a unique experience because it allows you to form
Yeah.
connections with your professors because they want to be supportive of you representing the school.
Yeah.
And they want to be supportive of your engineering experience and your learning. And it's a great way to form connections to your peers as well. If like for incoming freshmen, I always detail all the clubs, even though I'm Beaver Racing, um, Bleeding Orange, and Motor Oil.
Yeah.
But I will always recommend all the clubs
Yeah.
because when you're part of one club, you kind of become an ambassador for the whole club system because it worked well for you. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And you never know what's going to work for someone else if they might have more interest on like working with like ice cores or doing like submarine stuff, like what are
Yeah.
their just like depending on what their interests are. And that's really awesome that you're really passionate about sharing that because that's how I felt as an OSU student with like either I worked a lot with Orange Media Network and I was like, guys, do all these things with me. Like we have so
Yes.
many departments, like do all this stuff. And it's really fun to like kind of honestly be that person that is encouraging others to get out there because if people don't know about those resources or those clubs, then they're probably not going to find them unless someone kind of leads the way, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that you're kind of like, yeah, your own kind of spokesperson for your friends being like, let's guys, come on, like let's do this.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things too, where it's like when you're a part of a club, you have something to bring to the table, no matter what the discipline distribution is in your social environment. So
Mhm.
I had a lot of friends who weren't engineers. I had liberal arts major friends. I had biology major friends. Um, but when you sit down with those people to talk to them and, be social, having this experience in your field uh, is great conversation because then they can share their experiences in their field, and suddenly
Yeah.
you're learning about things that you wouldn't otherwise in your coursework just because you guys are all sharing your experiences within your field. So
Yeah.
it's really nice.
That's super cool. Like kind of like the mixing pot of knowledge and seeing what other because I have friends who are engineers and like it was so cool listening to them talk about the things that they're working on and you're like I would have never because I'm that liberal arts major friend. So I'm in my own little bubble and sharing with them what I'm doing and it's such a cool exchange just to see what others are interacting with or like having friends in kinesiology and learning that they're like working at like Samaritan Health and like all these different ways that they're getting involved with the things that they're passionate about, I think is really awesome and kind of really just helps build friendships because you kind of get to see what they're passionate about and how it's kind of shaping them. And I think college is a great time to do that because it's all about exploring, whether about like, career and like degree oriented things, but also like you as a person. So, I think that's really awesome that you're able to kind of interact with each other and share those experiences because I think that's my favorite part about interacting with my friends is seeing, okay, what are you guys up to? Like, what's happening? What kind of internships or jobs have we done in the past few months that I need to hear about?
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that passion with others, for sure. Something I heard you talk about because you mentioned like having to leave class for a racing event. Kind of walk me through if it's like a whole year-long process or like maybe the week of like a race day or even just race day itself, kind of what is that process when you're preparing? Are there like a lot of like meetings you're going throughout the term, or is it just kind of like one week where everyone kind of focuses in and prepares, or kind of what does that look like?
Yeah. So to walk you through the whole, I think the best representation of the team is to walk you through the whole process.
Yeah.
So to be perfectly honest, the preparations for this year car started last spring.
Okay.
Uh,
So like a
so
whole year process.
yeah, so um, we got back from our competition and scheduled what we call our postmortem.
Okay.
Um, and so it's where the team sits down and we discuss, everything that went well, everything that went wrong, what are our opportunities for improvement, and then we schedule subgroup. We schedule sub team meetings, and then
Okay.
that sub team will present design ideas for next year's car in spring of the previous year.
Wow. Yeah.
So, um, and then over the summer, people work on things like I think I'll probably be working on some component design today if I have time. But so the kind of brewing of ideas starts in the spring. And then over the summer, everyone kind of sits on their ideas and makes a more formulated plan. And then when we return in the fall, we hit the ground running with design. So we spend most of our design term or most of our fall term designing. So
Mhm.
we're working in the computer labs as a team, um, generating parts, and then the leads will check off your part to make sure it works. And we design the car as one assembled part. So everybody's designing their own components, but then it goes onto a 3D model of the entire assembly. So we complete design, we turn everything into a part drawing so it can be manufactured by either our sponsors or by our students. Um, and so we spend most of winter term manufacturing, which includes chassis welding from scratch, and then a lot of machining, a lot of milling, a lot of lathe work, a lot of long nights in the shop.
Hmm.
And then spring term is usually the final sprint to get everything manufactured. Usually we stay up till midnight or 2 a.m. on running car or rolling car day to get like the car on wheels, on suspension, and rolling and moving.
Okay.
And then we stay up again till midnight or 2 a.m., maybe even later, just getting the car running on a running car day. And then we rip
Okay.
it around the parking lot in Rogers. Um, everybody loses their minds because it's the
Yeah.
first time the car runs for the year. So everyone's super excited. And then after that, right until competition, it's a sprint to get everything tested and tuned, um,
Nice.
which can be very difficult. And so we have tight manufacturing deadlines and tight design deadlines so that when we get to testing season, we have all the time we need to
Yeah.
bring a competitive car to competition. And so then
Nice.
competition is where everything hits the fan. Um, and it is the most fun, stressful environment you will ever be in. Um, so how kind of competition works is we take it's 4 days of competition, Thursday,
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We had to take buffer days to do traveling. This year it was in Arizona. So
Oh, wow.
we borrowed vans from the motor pool and loaded up the whole team, all 35 of
Nice.
us, into four vans and a truck. Um, and drove in a caravan down to Arizona. And we have radios to talk in between the vans, which is a lot of fun. The van trip is a great environment. It's really a lot of fun. It's tiring because we don't stop,
Oh,
um,
wow.
except to use the restroom and fuel up on fuel.
Hmm.
But we have an industrial engineer on the team, and he plans the trip. So it's
Yeah.
precise, and the timing is he wants the timing done how he had planned it,
Yeah.
which is great. And he did a great job and it works flawlessly. So shout out to Cade for that. Um, so we travel down, we arrive on site. Um, we try to get a good pit stall close to the track so we can, get going and then everything hits the fan, of course. So
Mm.
we first day is all about technical inspection. So we're doing engine check. Um, and then they usually start the general tech, which is the whole car inspection. And then there's engine tech check, general tech, there's brake check, and four-wheel drive check.
Yeah.
And so all of these different checks, they're looking for rules compliance. And so then in the background to this, the business presentation goes on the first day, I believe, if I'm
Okay.
remembering correctly. Um, And so then tech takes most of the day because there's 100+ teams trying to pass technical inspection, and we're just one of them. So there's no
Yeah.
priority to us. So we spent 2 days going through tech inspections, and this is when the static events happen. So business presentation on the first day, design presentation on the second day. And then, if you're part of the pit crew, you're working on the car, making adjustments if it doesn't pass technical inspection, because often it doesn't pass the first time. Usually they'll catch something and we have to make an
Okay.
adjustment. Um, so if you're on the pit crew, you're fixing the car, getting it ready. If you're on the presentation teams, you're prepping for your presentation, you're practicing in front of the team, you're making sure your script is right, you're making sure that, you're ready to go because you have to change into a specific outfit for both of the presentations, which I'm actually wearing it. It's the design shirt and then
Nice.
a specific pair of khakis that are not comfortable. Um, but so we do the presentations, um, and then the dynamic days start on Saturday, Sunday. So the dynamic events are acceleration, maneuverability, sled pull, suspension and traction, and endurance.
Okay.
And so everything happens on Saturday except for endurance. The
Okay.
endurance is a 4-hour wheel to wheel race. So
Whoa.
all of the cars are on track at the same time over extremely technical course. And we have, I think, two driver changes during that time. And we have two
Okay.
drivers. We have Stone LaCroix and Dexter. And so they were our drivers this year. And they switch out to keep them fresh and from hurting
Yeah.
themselves by going too long. Um, and then on the day previous is kind of the more interesting of the day. Because
Yeah.
once the car goes out for endurance, you really don't see it again unless you're watching from the track. But for the rest of it, the car's coming in back and forth. And so
Okay.
acceleration is just like in 100-foot acceleration, shortest time wins. And that has a different car setup compared to the other events. So we're
Okay.
changing setups in between events. Maneuverability is a flat ground course with cones set up. And so it's all about like how tight can your car corner, how quickly can you change
Yeah.
directions. Um, and then we have our sled pull, which is a measure of the car's torque. And so this year it was a Honda Pilot that had a system in the brake uh, that would progressively apply the brakes harder and harder as you continue to go forward.
Okay.
And so we performed very well this year, actually. We performed top five in sled pull, I think top 10 in acceleration and maneuverability.
Nice.
And then suspension and traction is a very difficult event. Usually, the course designers are designing a course that is next to impossible. Um, so you get two attempts to make it as far as you can, as fast as you can,
Okay.
through the most technical course with the hardest obstacles, the biggest jumps, biggest rocks. This year there was a corner that had elevated logs in it that were,
Whoa.
knee to thigh height, with a
Yeah.
gap underneath them. There's no dirt running up to them. They're just in the air.
Yeah.
Um, so you get two attempts. The course designers are loaned a car from one of the teams to do testing on their courses, and they
Okay.
completed it in four attempts. Um, so it was technically more difficult.
Yeah.
We had a more difficult time than the course designers did completing it because we only got two attempts.
Mhm.
So yeah, the competition goes the static events and technical inspections, then our dynamics, which is the stuff I just explained, and then endurance. And at the very end, there's like an awards banquet
Okay.
where we, hear how everyone did and whatnot. And I think the highlight of the competition this year was being on pit crew.
Hmm.
Um, so we during endurance we had an issue where one of our tie rods, which helps control the motion of the wheel as it moves through its suspension travel, sheared off at the frame.
Oh no.
So it was really fun when the car came back in. We noticed it because the driver called in and said the car's crab walking, so it was moving sideways when it should have been moving
Okay. Yeah.
straight. And he came in and we look at the car and we're like, oh, okay, that is fully broken off.
That
So
is not supposed to be doing that.
yeah, we had to sand everything, all the paint off in that area, re-weld it back on. So there was a lot of there was a lot of like barked commands like do this right now.
Yeah.
Like um and that's to be expected. It's a high stress environment,
Yeah.
we have to get it done quickly and get back on track and keep completing laps. But you never take it personally because
Right.
if you were in the same if you were barking the commands, you'd be saying it the same way. Um,
Exactly.
and immediately after the car's back on track, they're like, hey, like great job.
Yeah.
It's never they're never mad at you. They just need it done quick.
Right. Yeah.
And
You're on
so
a time crunch.
yeah, and so I just it's hard to capture that pit crew experience and how good that feeling is of
Hmm.
coming in with a car that's not working and in 15 minutes getting it back on track
Yeah.
and racing again. And so we don't do any like if you're imagining kind of F1 or NASCAR, we don't do any tire changes. We
Okay.
just stop for fuel and catastrophic failures that need to be repaired.
Okay.
Um, so I think we came in a couple times. Once for the tie rod
Hmm.
snapping off the frame, and then once for a wiring issue, But we had a good race. I think we finished 15th there as well. And so the team finished
Nice.
10th overall in the competition because we
That's super
placed
awesome.
highly. Our statics team or our business presentation team went to finals. They did a great
Whoa.
job. I think they probably placed fourth
Okay.
overall. And then our design presentation team had a record best finish for a while. We did really well. We were really proud of our result. Um, yeah, so the I don't know if I've done a good job of explaining
No,
competition,
that was
but
awesome. Yeah.
um, it's a lot of fun. And I think the best part is getting to see something that you made
Hmm.
race and
Yeah.
race competitively.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ian. Thanks everybody for watching. Definitely be on the lookout for Beaver Racing. And definitely when you come to OSU, check it out. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching Beaver Tracks. Thank you, Ian, for interviewing.
Thank you
And
for interviewing me.
of course, and we'll see y'all next time.